Podcast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to roll-out facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The Bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
And today, we're diving deep into a feature piece that's been generating some serious buzz. This one's got layers and some surprises that are going to make farmers rethink fundamentally how they've been approaching their relationship with their processor.
Okay, let's unpack this because the core context of the American dairy market has it's shifted from challenging to something more like existential.
Right.
On paper, we are this colossal, $111 to $120 billion agricultural success story. But those headline figures, they mask a violent internal restructuring.
That's the perfect word for it. It's violent.
We are not just talking about consolidation. We are talking about the vanishing of the family farm model. We've lost 15,000 farms in the last 5 years alone.
And that loss is not evenly distributed, which is really why we're having this deep dive. The reality is stark. 834 mega farms now control a stunning 66% of all U.S. milk revenue.
2/3 of the market. In the hands of 834 farms. That concentration of supply creates an inevitable concentration of power in the processing sector.
It has to.
So if you are one of the other 23,000 farms still trying to make a living in this industry, your market access, your pricing leverage, and frankly, your long-term survival are fundamentally at risk. We are going to expose the arithmetic of that dominance.
The microeconomics behind it too, the stuff that makes the small farm, just non-competitive. And we have to talk about the new rules of engagement.
Absolutely. And we're not going to shy away from what is probably the most difficult conversation for American producers, the DFA paradox.
Oh, definitely not.
We are going to show you, with data and settled antitrust cases, how your supposedly farmer-owned cooperative, with its 44 processing plants and $23 billion in revenue, manages to capture unprecedented profit margins for its corporate arm.
Whilst producer members were absorbing 30% to 40% milk price crashes.
Exactly. That structural conflict of interest, backed up by Department of Justice scrutiny and multi-million-dollar settlements, is the cornerstone of this deep dive.
So our mission today is to give you the playbook. The playbook to survive in a market where 834 farms set the price floor and 3 global giants control the pricing ceiling.
Let's start with the cold, hard data, the arithmetic of dominance. The latest analysis, extrapolated from the 2022 Census of Agriculture, confirms that the U.S. had 24,082 dairy farms.
Okay.
Which is down from 39,303 just 5 years earlier.
Wait, let's pause on that percentage. That is a 39% decline in 5 years.
39%.
The sources indicate this is the largest percentage drop recorded between census periods since 1982. So we're not just shrinking. The pace of attrition is accelerating rapidly.
It is.
And for the majority of us who operate under 500 cows, that pace it's terrifying.
It leads us directly to the 834, that number you need to remember. This is the cohort of farms with 2,500 or more cows.
Big guys.
They are the only growth sector in farm numbers. They expanded their control from 57% of sales value in 2017 to 66% today. This isn't just organic growth. This is market capture.
Hold on. That means a vast majority of us, the approximately 80% of operations with under 500 cows, are competing for less than 25% of the overall milk market.
That's the math.
And when I look at the upper Midwest where I operate, the 50 to 99 cow herd used to be the absolute backbone, the stability point. What happens to that segment now?
It's being hollowed out systematically.
Yeah.
The data confirms the 50 to 99 cow herds are facing the sharpest declines because they are caught in an economic vice.
Oh, so?
They're too large to operate as a niche, low-debt, lifestyle-adjacent farm, which often describes that very smallest tier, under 50 cows.
Right. Those tiny farms sometimes survive because they are not solely reliant on the milk check or they serve hyperlocal markets. They've got another income source.
Precisely.
Exactly. My neighbor with 40 cows can sell raw milk directly or has a specialty organic contract, and they don't have $10 million in facility debt. But the 150 cow operation,
That's the one.
which requires significant capital investment in machinery, labor, and facilities. That farm is operating solely on thin commodity margins, and they cannot compete with the operational metrics of the 834. They are the true victims of this structural math.
And the implications extend beyond just the farm numbers. It means the processing infrastructure, the plants, the tankers, the haul routes, is rapidly adapting to this new concentrated supply chain.
Of course.
Processors are not optimizing their routes for 24,000 scattered pickups. They're optimizing for 834 mega-dairies that can fill multiple tankers daily from a single location. That changes the fundamental bargaining power equation overnight.
It creates a feedback loop, doesn't it?
100%.
The processor favors the mega farm because of lower hauling and overhead costs, which accelerates farm closures and fragmented milk sheds, which then further incentivizes the processor to invest capital only where the big farms are located.
That feedback loop brings us to our most brutal point, the microeconomics. We have to challenge the popular but destructive idea that if smaller farmer fails, it's solely due to bad management or inefficiency.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that.
The data shows a structural, insurmountable competitive moat based purely on size, and we can quantify that moat down to the penny.
I cannot stress this enough. I talk to farmers who beat themselves up daily, thinking they just need to work harder or run their numbers tighter. But the reality is that the efficiency gap is so wide that working harder is often futile against automated, industrialized scale.
Let's put numbers on that futility. We looked at the specific cost of production, or COP data. Mid-sized farms, those in the 100 to 199 cow bracket, have an estimated COP of approximately $32.83 per hundredweight.
Okay, 32.83.
Now look at the mega-dairies, the 2,500 plus cow operations. They operate at an estimated $23.66 per hundredweight.
Okay, so that's $9.77. That's nearly $10 per hundredweight disadvantage before the mid-sized farmer even starts.
$9.77.
That is the cost of entry to compete in the commodity market. You cannot outmilk a $9.77 disadvantage. You simply can't.
And the sources detail exactly where this catastrophic gap originates. It isn't just a generic overhead figure. We can break down the components.
Let's do it.
Start with feed acquisition, which is the largest input cost. Large farms leverage their purchasing power, securing rail car and massive volume pricing. That immediately gives them a $1.50 to $2 per hundredweight savings compared to a smaller farm buying feed by the truckload or spot market.
And that assumes perfect conditions. If a smaller farm gets hit by volatile commodity prices or needs to haul feed an extra 50 miles because the local supplier only sells in high volume to the big dairy down the road, that gap widens further.
The supply chain itself is rigged for volume.
It prioritizes the volume, absolutely.
Beyond inputs, the next colossal advantage is labor efficiency. Mega-dairies achieve a 40% to 60% labor cost reduction per hundredweight through heavy automation, specialized labor pools, and continuous flow operations. We're talking about rotary parlors running 24/7, advanced robotics handling materials, and sophisticated feeding systems.
Meanwhile, when I look at the mid-sized farm, they are reliant on manual or traditional methods, and they are struggling with labor shortages and rising wages.
It's a double whammy.
It is. A 500-cow operation has to pay competitive wages and deal with the high fixed cost of regulatory compliance, say $50,000 a year for environmental reporting and safety training. For them, that cost hits them hard.
But for the 5,000 cow operation,
Right. For the 5,000 cow operation, that same $50,000 is diluted across millions of pounds of milk, making the per hundredweight cost negligible.
it's the dilution of fixed costs that creates the moat. And as labor costs rise, the $11 billion investment we'll discuss later reinforces this. It's an investment in robotics to immunize production against the high cost of human labor.
You know, I challenge the conventional wisdom here. Those fixed costs, machinery, facilities, regulatory burden, they were manageable 10 years ago. What changed is the technology scale.
Say more about that.
You need millions of dollars in robotic infrastructure now just to achieve parity with the labor costs of 10 years ago. The mid-sized farmer who can't afford that immediate multi-million-dollar capital expenditure is structurally doomed in the commodity market.
That financial squeeze leads to a grim yet economically rational exit strategy, the beef market paradox.
Yeah, this part it's tough.
As the $9.77 margin squeeze tightens, the high cull cow prices we've seen, exceeding $145 per hundredweight, have become an escape valve.
It's tragic that the most profitable moment for many producers right now is the day they decide to quit.
That's a powerful way to put it.
The liquidation value of the herd has hit historic highs, meaning they can strategically depopulate their herd, sell into the lucrative beef market, pay down some debt, and exit the business with dignity rather than endure years of negative equity.
The sources confirmed this accelerates consolidation. The cows leave the mid-sized farms permanently, closing them down. Critically, that lost milk quota, the processing capacity, is immediately absorbed by the expanding 834 mega-dairies.
And they need it.
They do. These large dairies need that high-volume throughput to service their massive debt loads and run their automation systems efficiently.
So the processor benefits from the mega farm scaling up, and the mega farm benefits from the smaller farm liquidating, which provides capital and reduces market competition. It's a vicious cycle where consolidation is incentivized at every single point in the supply chain.
Now we follow the money. If 66% of the revenue is concentrated in 834 farms, who is buying that concentrated supply?
Right, where's it all going?
The processing sector has coalesced into a tight three-headed oligopoly, and they are global giants.
This is where we shift from domestic competition to global market dynamics. It's a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. Our three giants by 2024 revenue are Lactalis, the French behemoth, at $31.9 billion.
31.9, wow.
Dairy Farmers of America, DFA, the U.S. co-op, at $23.8 billion, and Saputo, the Canadian powerhouse, at $13.9 billion.
Okay.
Let's start with Lactalis, the aggressive foreign hegemon. They're privately held, which is a massive advantage.
Yeah.
They don't have to deliver predictable quarterly results to Wall Street. They can take expensive, long-term strategic positions and use their massive cash reserves to execute rapid acquisitions.
It means they play a different game than the publicly traded Saputo or even the cooperative DFA. They are aiming for market dominance, not just predictable returns.
And their acquisition strategy is relentless. Reviewing their recent spree shows just how aggressively they are moving into the U.S. consumer market. They grabbed General Mills' U.S. yogurt business for $2.1 billion.
That's the Yoplait deal.
That's Yoplait and Go-Gurt, instantly adding $1.5 billion in net sales to their U.S. ledger. They also acquired Fonterra's global consumer business for another $2.3 billion, cementing their control over global distribution and brand portfolios.
This strategy is fascinating because they are buying brand equity and distribution infrastructure, not just milk plants.
That's a key distinction.
This gives them massive control over global dairy trade flows. U.S. farmers effectively become reliable, high-volume commodity suppliers for a foreign corporate landlord. When the profits are generated by those high-margin brands, they're often repatriated back overseas, rather than reinvested locally or shared with producers.
Okay, now let's pivot to the DFA cooperative paradox. This is the heart of the conflict for American dairy farmers.
This is the one everybody wants to talk about.
DFA markets milk for over 11,000 members, handling roughly 30% of U.S. milk production. The central issue is that DFA also owns and operates 44 processing plants, a number significantly expanded by the 2020 Dean Foods acquisition.
The structural conflict of interest is blindingly clear and needs detailed analysis. You, the producer, are a member and owner of the cooperative, but that cooperative has two masters. The producer marketing arm, which is supposed to maximize your milk price, and the corporate processing arm, which maximizes its profits by minimizing its input costs, which is your milk price.
And when milk prices crashed 30% to 40% in 2023, the data shows that processors with integrated operations DFA captured massive margin expansion.
They did very, very well.
They kept their input costs, the raw milk check paid to you, the farmer, low while profiting handsomely on the high margin, value-added products like cheese, ingredients, and fluid milk.
The producer absorbed the losses. The processing arm captured the margin. When the market is volatile, the farmer's milk check becomes the corporate division's raw material discount.
So the question stops being, are we partners?
And becomes, am I their supplier to be managed?
Exactly. The scale of this market power prompted the Department of Justice intervention. The 2020 Dean Foods acquisition, where DFA bought 44 fluid and frozen processing assets for $433 million, was massive.
It's huge.
The DOJ stepped in and required DFA to divest plants in key milk sheds, specifically Harvard, Illinois, De Pere, Wisconsin, and Franklin, Massachusetts.
And the DOJ was essentially saying, if you acquire all these assets, you will have too much market control, especially in fluid milk, and you will be able to dictate prices to non-member producers and manipulate the FMMO pool.
So that intervention provides concrete regulatory validation of the high level of concentration we are discussing.
It's not just a theory. The government stepped in and said, this is too much.
Let's look at Saputo, the third player. the Canadian efficiency architect. Their $13.9 billion revenue is underpinned by their network optimization program, a strategy that embodies capital labor substitution.
Right, and when Saputo talks about optimization, they mean permanently closing legacy high-labor facilities.
And transferring that production to fewer, larger, highly automated greenfield sites.
It's a brutal but effective business strategy.
We've seen the impact across the U.S. They announced or completed major facility closures in places like Lancaster and Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Southgate, California. These closures represent millions in write-downs.
But the long-term structural savings from automation far outweigh the short-term pain for them.
For them, yes. And this production wasn't just stopped, it was transferred. The classic example is their new state-of-the-art cut and wrap facility in Franklin, Wisconsin.
That site relies heavily on robotics and continuous flow packaging, allowing Saputo to maximize throughput while minimizing dependence on volatile, high-cost human labor. It's an investment in business insulation.
But the strategy of optimization isn't just about labor. It's about technological differentiation. Let's discuss the quiet giant, Leprino Foods.
Leprino, the definition of a technological moat.
Most consumers have never heard of them, yet they control 85% of the U.S. pizza cheese market, supplying virtually every major chain. They are a $3.6 billion entity built almost entirely on specialized cheese.
And their dominance isn't merely through massive scale, it's through intellectual property.
That's the key, IP.
Leprino holds patented manufacturing processes that control the complex characteristics of mozzarella, how it browns under heat, how it melts, and critically, how it stretches. This IP prevents their high-specification product from being commoditized by a competitor.
This is a profound insight for producers. This is why the $11 billion investment we're coming to is heavily skewed toward cheese and ingredients.
Because that's where the margin is.
In commodity fluid milk, you race to the bottom. In specialized ingredients, if you own the IP, the technology that makes the perfect pizza cheese or the perfect protein isolate, you dictate the margins. That technological barrier is what keeps the smaller, less sophisticated processor out.
It's a brilliant business model.
Now, on the flip side, we have to note that foreign investment, while leading to consolidation, also modernizes outdated U.S. infrastructure.
That's true. It's not all negative.
Lactalis, despite its aggressive acquisitions, committed $75 million to upgrade facilities in New York. A huge part of that is a $60 million expansion in Buffalo, specifically to boost mozzarella and provolone production by 37 million pounds annually.
That's a lifeline for the specific New York milkshed, but again, it reinforces the trend.
How so?
Lactalis isn't making that investment contingent on a fragmented supply. They are betting that the New York milk volume will continue to consolidate into fewer, larger, and far more consistent suppliers who can meet that massive, specialized throughput demand.
This correlates perfectly with the geographical consolidation we are seeing. Overall, cheese output is hitting records, yet production plummeted 11% in Pennsylvania and dropped 2% in Iowa.
While California and Wisconsin maintain market share, processors are ruthlessly rational. They are following the largest, most efficient milk supplies.
So if your regional processor shuts down, your market disappears immediately.
Gone, overnight.
And when the milk is rerouted to an expanding mega facility hundreds of miles away, the hauling cost makes your already tight margins evaporate. It's a structural mechanism for eliminating the smaller, more geographically isolated operation.
This brings us to the future implications, specifically the $11 billion deadline.
Right. According to the International Dairy Foods Association, or IDFA, over $11 billion is flowing into 53 new or expanded processing facilities across 19 states, scheduled to come fully online by 2028.
This is the most significant agricultural infrastructure investment surge in modern history, and we must be crystal clear. This capacity is not being built for 24,000 small dairies.
No, it is exclusively designed for high-volume throughput, export markets, and specialized high-margin ingredients.
Think about those specialized ingredients. Whey protein isolates, lactose powders, pharmaceutical-grade dairy derivatives. These products demand highly consistent, massive volume, year-round supply.
And a 200-cow farm simply cannot guarantee the volume required for a processor building a multi-million-dollar facility aimed at, say, the Asian protein powder market.
Not a chance. They need a steady stream of 500,000 pounds a day, 365 days a year. The big three are pre-securing contracts with the 834 mega-dairies because they know those operations can provide the scale and consistency the new automated infrastructure demands.
That 2028 deadline is your timeline for adaptation. If you haven't secured a niche market or scaled up by the time that $11 billion in infrastructure comes fully online, you risk finding yourself in a milk shed with no processor willing to take your supply.
Because their contracts will already be filled by the large, high-volume operations.
And fueling this push for automation is the labor paradox. We know 51% of the U.S. milk supply relies on immigrant labor. Yet the industry struggles immensely to staff both farm operations and new construction projects.
It's a huge friction point.
We saw budget overruns, like the Dairy Gold facility in Pasco, Washington, where construction costs ballooned by $300 million, largely due to labor shortages and material inflation.
So if the processors can't build efficiently and the farms can't staff their parlors, the corporate solution is capital substitution.
Exactly. The $11 billion is primarily an investment in robotics, automated palletizers, and continuous flow vats. This raises the capital barrier to entry incredibly high, further entrenching the dominance of the big three who can afford this upfront cost.
To immunize themselves against rising labor costs and the ongoing political uncertainty surrounding immigration.
And finally, the regulatory context. The FMMO controversy.
Yes, the make allowances.
The USDA approved a massive increase to the make allowances in 2025, which is the fixed credit processors receive to cover manufacturing costs. Everything from energy and labor to packaging.
Let's break down the mechanics because this is critical for every farmer listening. The make allowance is subtracted from the wholesale price of the finished product, say cheese, to determine the minimum price the processor must pay you for the raw milk.
So when that allowance increases,
the minimum price you, the farmer, receive goes down.
It's an instant structural transfer of hundreds of millions of dollars from producer milk checks directly onto the processor balance sheets.
And while the USDA justifies this by citing rising processing costs, which are real, the implementation of this change means the producer is absorbing the cost of inflation on the manufacturing side.
And here's the governance failure. This increase was approved through block voting by cooperative boards like DFAs.
Right. So when the cooperative casts a single vote representing all its thousands of members, the individual farmer who opposes the allowance increase is effectively disenfranchised.
The cooperative corporate leadership, which benefits from the increased allowance via the processing arm, holds all the power in the voting process.
The FMMO block voting structure and the inherent conflict within the co-op model sets the stage perfectly for our deeper look into governance failure and antitrust issues.
We have to discuss the landmark $34.4 million antitrust settlement in the Southwest.
This is critical because it validates years of pharma suspicion that the cooperative structure can be used not to serve the producer, but to manipulate the market against them.
DFA's share of that settlement was $24.5 million, resolving a class action antitrust lawsuit in the Southwest.
And the core allegation was a conspiracy to suppress milk prices from 2015 through 2025.
How did they allegedly do it?
The mechanism centered on the Greater Southwest Agency, or GSA, which was jointly owned by DFA and select milk producers. The GSA wasn't just a data-sharing body. It was allegedly used to coordinate pay structures and pricing data, effectively eliminating price competition for raw milk in that region.
Think of it like this. If two major processors are bidding on raw milk, the price goes up.
Right, basic supply and demand.
But if those two major processors coordinate their bidding through an agency they jointly own, they can agree to a lower ceiling, guaranteeing both get the raw material at a discount.
The GSA was allegedly the vehicle for this cartel effect.
But the most compelling and insidious allegation was the selective depooling. This requires a brief explanation of FMMO mechanics. Normally, all milk is pooled and farmers receive a blend price.
But the lawsuit alleged that when market prices for certain finished products like cheese were high, the cooperatives would remove milk volumes from the FMMO pool.
Why depool? Why would they do that?
Because removing the milk allowed the processing arm of the cooperative to retain the revenue surplus that was above the regulated blend price.
So instead of that surplus being distributed to all farmer members via the regulated pool price,
the co-op's corporate division captured that high-margin revenue directly.
It's the ultimate conflict. When prices were low, they kept the milk in the pool to stabilize the member price. When prices were high, they pulled the milk out to maximize corporate revenue.
It's a heads-I-win, tails-you-lose situation for the co-op's corporate side.
The settlement, which forced DFA and Select to dissolve the GSA and implement mandatory antitrust training, validates the suspicion that the cooperative structure can and has evolved into a monopsonistic processor viewing its members as managed suppliers.
And this settlement following similar multi-million-dollar cases in the Southeast and Northeast, establishes a clear and troubling pattern. It forces the individual producer to acknowledge that their own cooperative may not always be operating in their financial best interest.
So we accept this reality. The brutal $9.77 math is against the small farm. Processors are consolidating globally, and the cooperative model has governance conflicts. We cannot end here. What is the actionable survival playbook?
This is the most important part.
Because the conventional wisdom is clear. Solo farms are dead farms unless they drastically specialize or collaborate.
We need actionable, size-specific strategies, starting with the small herd, those under 200 cows who are facing the sharpest attrition.
For the small herd, forget the commodity tank entirely. Your survival path is specialization.
You have to get out of that game.
The data shows the organic sector, growing 7.7% in 2024, is still viable, but the real leverage is hyper-niche. Regional groups in Pennsylvania supplying specialty markets A2A2, grass-fed, heritage breeds are reporting premiums of $2 to $4 per hundredweight.
Wait, let's connect that back. If the commodity price is $23 and your cup is $32.83, you need nearly $10 in premium to break even. A $4 premium from a niche market only closes the gap halfway, but it's a necessary start. You must combine that premium with drastically lower input costs, often achieved through grass-fed or reduced feed purchases, and extremely low debt to survive.
Exactly. A2A2 milk, grass-fed certification, and establishing a hyper-local brand with direct sales are no longer side projects. They are the entire business model. You must capture the maximum consumer dollar possible.
Now, the middle ground, the 200 to 1,000 cow tier, this is the hardest group to advise.
It is. They're caught in the middle.
They're too large for easy specialization, but too small for the $23.06 under 6 efficiency. They have to focus ruthlessly on quality and components.
They must leverage technology for consistency. Robotic milking systems are a massive capital outlay, easily $1.5 million to $3 million for this size, but they stabilize labor, improve milking consistency, and drive down somatic cell counts.
And that consistency is exactly what the new, highly automated ingredient plants demand.
And critically, this middle ground must achieve collaboration without consolidation. Stop selling milk alone.
You have to.
They must research and join producer quality alliances in the upper Midwest that have successfully negotiated component premiums averaging $2 to $3 per hundredweight by consistently guaranteeing butterfat above 4.0% and high protein.
The sources showed Jersey operations consistently achieving butterfat levels above 5.0%, which is how you access those substantial component premiums.
So if you pool your high component milk with 5 or 10 other medium-sized farms, you suddenly have the volume to negotiate directly with the cheese or ingredient buyer, bypassing the commodity spot market.
Finally, the big players, the 1,000-plus cow operations. They have the COP advantage, but their risk is reliance on a single massive buyer who will try to lock them into long-term unfavorable terms.
Their survival strategy is leverage maintenance. Never forward contract more than 60% to 70% of your production. You must maintain flexibility to capture spot market peaks.
And you should either own your transportation or maintain strong relationships with multiple hauling options so the processor cannot squeeze you on hauling costs or threaten market access.
And always demand escalation clauses tied to feed costs in long-term contracts. Do not depend on a static base price. If inputs jump 20%, you need an automatic mechanism to trigger a commensurate increase in pay price.
Maintain relationships with 2 or 3 major buyers because, as the DFA case shows, market power will eventually be used against a sole supplier.
The central takeaway, regardless of scale, is that the battleground has entirely moved from the efficiency of the farm parlor to the leverage you hold in the market.
100%.
All right, farmer just finished morning milking. They're driving to the feed store. What are the 3 things they need to know from this deep dive, the 3 actionable steps they must take?
Number 1, immediate action, starting this week. Know your buyer's game. You must stop accepting the status quo from your field representative. Ask the critical, high-level questions provided in the source analysis.
Like what?
Like, what percentage of your milk goes to the export market? What percentage is used for specialized ingredients? And most importantly, what is the plan if your processor consolidates or closes facilities in the next 18 months? If you don't know where your milk is going, you don't know your risk profile.
And if your processor is investing $11 billion in automated ingredient plants, but you're a 200-cow commodity supplier, you are not aligned with their future. The medium-term strategy over the next 3 to 6 months has to be about finding your premium alliance.
If you are operating under 1,000 cows, you must stop competing alone. This means actively researching producer alliances, not just talking about it, but attending meetings and looking at bylaws. Explore specialty markets like organic or A2A2 to capture the $4 to $8 per hundredweight premiums needed to bridge that catastrophic COP gap with the mega-dairies.
You need those premiums to fund the necessary capital investments.
You do. And finally, the long-term positioning, the next 1 to 2 years. Assess scale versus specialization. You must acknowledge the 2028 deadline. The $11 billion new infrastructure is coming online, designed exclusively for high volume and consistency.
So if you cannot realistically scale your operation to 1,000 plus cows to become a tier 1 supplier for the new infrastructure, you must secure a niche market or a high component contract immediately.
If you try to survive in the commodity market at a mid-scale size, the brutal $9.77 math and the consolidating power of the big three will eliminate you before that 2028 infrastructure is even fully commissioned. The time for hedging is over.
This has been another deep dive from the Bullvine Podcast. If this kind of analysis helps your operation, head to www.thebullvine.com for more articles that tell you what's really happening in dairy. Knowledge really is power when you're facing a $9.77 disadvantage.
And seriously, subscribe wherever you get your deep dives. We're releasing episodes twice weekly now, and trust me, you don't want to miss what we've got coming next week about the escalating risks associated with foreign land ownership in agriculture, a trend that goes hand in hand with the processing consolidation we discussed today, and why the ownership of prime farmland is becoming the next battleground for market control.